Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm Bob Walters. This is Locked Up Sports, the best New York sports talk on the internet. Welcome to the show. A rough one last night for St. John's, and it's even bigger than you think of a loss. And as bad as it was, it's going to get worse for St. John's. An embarrassing 72-40 loss last night in Stores against Connecticut. UConn came in and they just steamrolled them right from the get-go. St. John's, I mean, when you look at some of the numbers in the game, it's comically embarrassing. 11 for 56 from the field, 19% from the field. They scored 2 baskets in the second half. They scored 11 baskets total in the game. It's the lowest points ever by a Rick Pitino team. The only reason they reached 40 instead of 38 was because Dylan Darling hit 2 meaningless free throws with a minute to go. It's the worst loss to UConn in St. John's school history. They missed 24 consecutive shots to end the game. They were just completely run out of the gym in the first 10 minutes of the game. And then they scratched and clawed a little bit at the end of the half to get it to 16. And then it just all fell. And then in the second half, they came out and they all fell apart. And yeah, it's the kind of game that you look at and you go, this obviously isn't the St. John's team that we've been watching over the last month and a half, 2 months, because it's not. But when you look at the NCAA tournament, and that's where Rick Pitino is judged. If Rick Pitino is your coach, he's judging the NCAA tournament and in March and what you do in March. This will probably cost them an outright championship in the regular season of the Big East. Okay, that's not really a big deal. Yeah, it's nice to have. It'd be nice to have 2 in a row, but you'd much rather go deeper in March than have a regular season Big East championship. You'd much rather even have a Big East tournament championship than a Big East regular season championship. And St. John's now, the best they could do is pretty much, because you've got to figure UConn's going to run the table the rest of the way, is split the Big East national championship, regular season championship. But that is now in question because you still got Villanova this Saturday. You still got Seton Hall. Both are games that St. John's can lose. They'll beat Georgetown. They'll win that game. And one more loss is they're going to be out of the contention for the regular season champion in the Big East. Like I said, you can live with that. Rick Pitino's your coach. He's one of the best coaches ever. He is judged in March and what happens in March and what happens in the Garden during that week in March and then what happens going forward. And a loss like this, when you put it with the other losses at the beginning of the season against teams that were any kind of high-profile team they lost to. They lost to Auburn. They lost to Kentucky. They lost to Virginia. They lost a bunch of games that they should have won. They lost to Providence at home. Everyone wants to talk about the 13-game win streak, but these other games is what's going to cost them come Selection Sunday. Because St. John's, who just went on a 13-game win streak, besides the UConn win at home, which is almost negated because of what happened last night, now you're looking at not the best resume going into Selection Sunday. When the committee gets in that room and they start looking at St. John's, they're going to look at the losses. They're going to look at the resume, the full resume, and it's not a great resume. I think if they want to get a top 5 seed, they're going to have to win the Big East tournament. Because the Big East is not a good league this year, right? You got St. John's, you got UConn, you got Villanova, and then you got everybody else. And St. John's beat everybody else, lost to UConn, beat UConn. And then when you go to the beginning of the season with their non-conference schedule, they didn't beat anybody. That was a game, like a team that, okay, this was a good win. They have no good wins, except for UConn at the Garden 3 weeks ago. And okay, you can look at last night, and that's going to propel UConn. UConn's going to run the table. That's going to propel them in possibly now for a run into a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Tarris Reed is outplayed and embarrassed Zubia Ejiofor last night. We sat here just a couple days ago with Zach Brazilla, New York Post, St. John's beat writer. He said he thought Ejiofor was going to be a nightmare matchup for Reed and for UConn down low. It couldn't have been more wrong. And I don't blame him for saying it. I mean, listen, Ejiofor played well in the first game at the Garden, but that was just a complete disaster. And I'll tell you what Hurley did last night is before the game, he embarrassed Reed. He said that was embarrassing the other night. You're going to let him embarrass you again right here on our court, on your campus, in front of 15,000 people? And Tarris Reed went out there and had 20 points, 11 boards. He was he was great on the defensive end, protecting the rim. Every time Hopkins went into the lane, Reed smacked it into the third row. He had 6 blocks. Now, the shooting for St. John's, listen, that's something that can happen. Yeah, it was embarrassingly bad, obviously, last night, but you can have off shooting nights and just nothing's dropping and you have games like that. You know, it is what it is. But it wasn't just the shooting. It was the defense was lazy last night. You had Smith and you had Ball and you had DeMaria running past their guy, and nobody stepped up into the lane to defend them. They had free run to the basket all night. It was. I mean, the defense, and this is coming from a team where the defense has played better, but at times this season it has not looked good at all. And last night it just highlighted everything. St. John's likes to run. They play well in transition. They had 0 fast break points last night. 0 points off of turnovers. There were more points in the paint for UConn than St. John's scored total last night. These are glaring things that could come up and bite them. And now, because of this loss and because of the losses at the beginning of the season, they're going to have a tougher road in the NCAA tournament, because I don't know if they're going to win the Big East tournament. And I think if they don't, then you're looking at a 5 seed or a 6 seed. You're looking at going maybe further away from New York in the country in that first weekend. St. John's wanted to have it with, okay, even if they lost this game, be competitive, go win the tournament, win the regular season, and get yourself somehow in that East region in Philadelphia, probably like a Duke as the 1 seed, and you get to that second weekend, and then you just kind of, roll the dice. But if you're a 6 seed, you're gonna have matchup games where you could lose. I mean, obviously you could lose any game in the NCAA tournament. Any team could lose any game, but you're gonna probably have a tougher game and a tougher road to get out of that first weekend, because style points count somewhat in that room with the selection committee. And you look at the game they played against UConn last night, and you say 72-40, this is how bad St. John's could be. Then you look at the Providence game that they lost at home, and you say, look, they lost to this Providence team. They're terrible too. The game last week or 2 weeks ago against Providence with the fight and everything, St. John's didn't blow that game out until Providence's 2 best players on the floor got kicked out of the game. That's when St. John's took control. And these are things that the selection committee is going to look at, and it's going to hurt St. John's. Because even with a regular season championship and a Big East tournament championship, you were looking at a highest of 4 seed probably. Think about it. Last year's team won both. They were not as talented, not as good a team as this team record-wise, and they got a 2 seed. The competition has stepped up this year. There are better teams around the country. And they got to give spots to all them. And you could throw this game away. You can. Because this is not the St. John's team that we saw play the last month and a half of the season. This isn't even, that last night's game team wasn't even the team that lost those games in the beginning of the season. Last night was just one of those nights, nothing went in. And they weren't even close. I mean, they were coming up on with air balls on 13-footers. They were coming up with just backboard, side of the rim, side of the backboard on 3-pointers, Jackson couldn't hit anything. I mean, nobody could hit anything. I don't even know why I bother saying that. But getting back on defense is an issue. That's a hustle thing. You had Reed running up the floor, running right past, Ejiofor couldn't even keep up with him. 2 dunks in about 2 minutes with Reed all alone under the hoop, got the ball, went up and dunked it. Nobody even within 3 feet of him. Every time Hopkins went into the lane last night, the ball ended up in the 3rd row with Reed standing there over him, taunting him. So, yeah, you could look at the statistics and you could laugh because it's embarrassingly laughable funny as bad how bad it was. I mean, when was the last time you saw a college Division I basketball team, a ranked top 20 college Division I basketball team, scored 2 buckets in a half? Right? Missed their last 24 shots. No baskets in the last 17 minutes and 28 seconds of the game. That's almost the whole second half. Not a single basket. If it wasn't for Darling hitting those 2 free throws, they would have finished with 38 points. That would have been like a 7-point second half. I mean, just the CYO teams that I played on when I was 9 years old. And the final scores were like 19-16 or 21-13. Those teams scored more than 2 buckets in the second half of those games. That's the level of incompetence that it was last night. Now Pitino's one of the great coaches. He's gonna fix it. He's gonna get on them. They're not gonna play like that again. I guarantee it. But to come in a big high-profile game like last night, where it was a showdown, a Big East showdown for the regular season title, and just a lot of hoopla behind it, and to get run out of the gym in the first 6-7 minutes of the game, it's not good. It's not good, and it's going to really hurt their resume, regardless of what happens the rest of the way. You lose a game by 4 points last night, a tough-fought game, you lose on the road, okay. But this, 72-40, and all the things that you're worried about with St. John's just came boiling to the top last night. The 3-point shooting, terrible. The defense was terrible. Ejiofor was just outplayed and outworked down low completely by Taris Reed. And, and on the other side, UConn's, a lot of people for UConn are taking it a little far too. Oh, it looks like a 1 seed. They look like the best team in the country. They're not the best team in the country. Could they be a 1 seed? Yeah, if they go and they win the Big East tournament, they could be a 1 seed. But Taris Reed is inconsistent too. Because at the Garden 3 weeks ago, this was not the same player that we saw last night. And inconsistency in March will kill you. Because it only takes one. One game, and you're out. One bad game, you don't show up, you don't shoot good one night. The other team has a guy that just gets red hot. You're out. It's over. The bottom line, St. John's got to be better. And they got to put this behind them. It's going to cost them. I think this game what happened last night will cost St. John's in the seeding process, in the room in Selection Sunday. I think you're looking at, I don't know if they could get to a 4 seed now. I would imagine maybe they can. But I think now you're looking at a 5 seed. Now you want to secure the 5 seed. You don't want to go lower than the 5 line if you're St. John's. The problem is the Big East sucks this year. Besides UConn and Villanova, Villanova's nobody is there. None of them are good wins against any of the other teams. Now, if they lose to Villanova on Saturday, now you just lost the Big East regular season title, basically. Now you're gonna worry about maybe dropping even below a 5 seed. So they got a couple days here now to get it together, get back on track. They're going home. It's good that the game is at home They played well at home at the Garden. It's going to be a big crowd. It's going to sell out. They got to get it together, though. You can't lose now the rest of the way. 72-40, as embarrassing as it was, and it's going to cost them a little bit. It's glaringly embarrassing. It's not like, okay, you just got blown out. You get blown out, you lose by 15, 17 points last night. Okay. But this, when you just look at the score and you just look at the stats and the things that happened, we missed 24 shots in a row to end the game, didn't score a bucket in the final 17 plus minutes, 19% from the field, 11 for 56 for the game, 40 points. It's glaring. It stands out on a resume. And that's going to be the problem. They got Villanova Saturday night at the Garden, 8 o'clock. Like I said, it's going to be a sellout. You got to come out strong in that game. You got to come out strong and you got to win that game. And then I guess they could trip up against Seton Hall, but they're better than they should beat Seton Hall. You don't want this to kind of spiral out of control if you're St. John's. You want to contain it. All right, we lost. We beat them. They're 1-1. Doesn't matter if we lost by 2 points, 40 points, whatever. We couldn't shoot. It is what it is. You have bad shooting nights. This was this was the worst of the bad, but it happens. And I think Pitino will be able to get that message through to his team. And I think they will come out and play well on Saturday night against Villanova. But last night, man, talk about laying an egg. Talk about coming into a big spot, a season-defining spot for both of the teams. Because UConn loses that game last night. They're not getting the 1 seed. They're not winning the Big East regular season, and they're going to be on the 2 line. Just not that big of a deal, but you want to get the 1 seed. If you're a team that is up for it right there in the mix, you want to get the 1 seed. And a big game for St. John's, because if they went in there last night and they won and they knocked off UConn and they swept UConn for the season and they win the Big East regular season, they go into the Big East tournament as the top seed. That's big too. And in that big game, UConn showed up. St. John's laid an egg. And this is what happened, 72-40, with all the laughable stats right underneath it. Saturday night, UConn, St. John's, Villanova, Madison Square Garden. It's going to be another big one. They need it. You can't lose again now. Put yourself in a spot where you can't lose again. And that's what happened last night. Just an embarrassing game. One of the worst Pitino has ever had, he said. This probably he named one game in his first year with Kentucky. I think there was a game with Louisville somewhere in there that his team scored 40 points or something. But those teams were not as good as this St. John's team is supposed to be. And St. John's, anything short of a Sweet 16 bid, I think this year is just a complete disappointment. And I think they can still do it. They got the talent. They got to get together. You can't have games like this. Teams that go to Elite Eights and Final Fours don't have games like this. So that does it for me. That's what I got to say about that. The St. John's game. Don't forget, rate, review, and subscribe. Every little bit helps. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button to the channel. Leave us a review. Hit the comments. If you are listening on the podcast, the audio end, don't forget to leave us a review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening. Head on over to the YouTube channel and click there so you don't miss anything. And make sure you hit any social media you're on. We're on too, so make sure you look for us and find us. And, that's it for here today. 40 points, 2 buckets in the second half. It was a disaster last night. But you know what? They can move past it. They'll be all right. Got a big one on Saturday night. You got to put this one in the rearview mirror. Just throw it out. If it's one of those nights, it is what it is. It happens. And try and move past it. That does it for me, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Like I said, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Every little bit helps. From the Brian Gunzel Studios, I'm Bob Walters, everybody. See ya.